If you started a business brand and a personal brand on the same day and you posted the same content at the same time, when the business brand reached 1,000 followers, the personal brand would have already reached 20,000 followers.
Poppy Reid launched Rolling Stone and Variety magazine into Australia and New Zealand. She's a multi-award-winning journalist and presenter and is now shaping culture as co-founder and chief content officer of Curious Media.
We're seeing this huge sway away from institutions and legacy logos towards personalities. And I think the reason for that is there's this huge distrust within media. 65% of consumers are wanting to go to influencers and creators to help them understand the news. I always want to be where media is or where it's going. And I feel like the media industry is like boxing, where if you're not anticipating the next move, you're going to get caught in the flurry.
Number 5, Ali.
We have a tagline that we are asking our viewers, our fans, to walk towards the uncomfortable. That's where growth is. That's where vulnerability is. That's where authenticity is. The reason why we called it Curious Media was because that's the best thing that you need in order to be a high achiever. I feel like I had the type of imposter syndrome that was crippling. I'm not that religious, but I remember just praying all the time and being like, let the mask stay on. Let people not find out that I'm a complete fraud and have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
This episode is brought to you by Wix Studio. Now, you began your career in like one of the mastheads of the music industry, the Music Network and Rolling Stone, of all places. What kind of power did those legacy brands command back then, and what remains of that power today?
That's such a great first question. So the Music Network, I had never heard of it when I started working there as an intern. I literally worked there for free for 6 months. I was living in Brisbane, literally just on dance floors at nightclubs, like not really thinking about, well, in the back of my head, I knew what I wanted to do. I've always known that I wanted to be a storyteller. I always knew that I wanted to get into music journalism, but the right job wasn't there for me. And then, do you remember Faster Louder?
Oh, yeah.
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 So there was a job forum on there for an internship for the Music Network. I moved to Sydney for the internship. I worked for free for 6 months, worked my way up from, I think it was like editorial assistant to associate editor to editor. And at that point, it's so weird. In my career, I always seemed to be at the precipice of media going from old to new, but not always by design. So at that point, the Music Network was a print magazine, a weekly print magazine, and they were moving to a website and they were creating this digital platform. So that was really interesting for me to be part of. And then I wanted to get in, once I was editor, I wanted to get into podcasting. I remember the guy who owned the Music Network at the time just not having any interest in it. It was quite new, this is like 2016. And so I remember buying my own podcast mic and I was like, I can learn editing. I'll do this myself. I just think I really believe in podcasting. And then I met Luke Gergis, my former co-founder at the Bragg Media, where we brought Rolling Stone back into the market. And we started to get into podcasting then. But at that point as well, we had the Bragg Street Press magazine. And so we were then moving from old to new as well. We were moving towards a social first strategy. And bringing Rolling Stone back to the market was amazing. That was something that I really wanted, but Luke wasn't 100% on board with. And I remember I'd written a couple of articles for them, from reviews to a couple of long form pieces. And the Bragg Media was growing via acquisition. That was our whole way of growing in market. You kind of have to in media in a way, because if you're not shrinking, you're dead. So to put it lightly. So I said to Luke, I think we should bring in Rolling Stone. And at that point, it hadn't left the market. I don't know if you remember what had happened with Rolling Stone. It was owned by Bauer, and then Matt Coit launched his own publishing company called Paper Riot, and he had the license for it. And then BandLab, which has NME magazine, bought the rights to license Rolling Stone, and BandLab took Rolling Stone out of the Australian market. I guess they just saw the model and was like, this isn't working. But it was very unceremonious the way that it left. You know, none of the subscribers were notified. I believe the legend goes that Matt Coit didn't really get a say in it, that it was a bit of a rug pull, bit of a surprise for him. And we were actually in talks with Matt Coit to save Rolling Stone at that point because it wasn't profitable. And then we were in talks with BandLab as well. And then amazingly, a company called Penske Media Corporation bought the rights, the global rights to Rolling Stone. And they have Deadline and Billboard and a whole bunch of others. They basically own media. And they were amazing to deal with. And so the conversation started with them to bring Rolling Stone back to the Australian market. And then we launched in 2020 during a global pandemic. And we launched a print magazine in 2020.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating what a ceremonious time to do it because it felt like it was probably bad timing. So how did you justify, okay, now's the time to go all in on resurrecting this legacy brand in spite of everything that was happening in the world at the time?
With a print magazine.
With a print magazine, which felt at that time maybe slightly obsolete as a place to enter the market?
With Rolling Stone, we had told everyone that we were going to launch this magazine and we were working hard on it. We were doing interviews with it. I had actually hired my sister, Katie Taylor, to come and be the creative director of it. And we'd done all this work and then, you know, March 2020 hit and we launched the magazine in May. And I remember having this conversation with Luke at the time and I was like, surely not. You know, the news agencies aren't even open. Like we don't even have like a strategy for this. And he was like, we said we're going to do it. And so we're going to do it. And so we had an amazing investor in Sam Benjamin who gave us that run rate to be able to launch Rolling Stone in a market that had closed and where a whole bunch of other titles were falling and not being invested in. So because of him, we were able to double down on digital marketing. We were able to teach the market about the importance of print during a time when a lot of people were doom scrolling. And I think that really helped us. And we launched with, also Rolling Stone's really known for rock male acts on the cover. And I come in loving pop music. And I'm like, let's go Tones and I. Let's go. First magazine, Tones and I. Second magazine, Sia. Let's go. I think the third magazine was Tash Sultana, gender non-binary artist. So, we were really trying to push it out to the market, a very new message around what print could be and also what audience could be into print, which was young, and we were trying to target the female audience as well.
Do you think that how it was toppled in the Australian market gave you a real good opportunity to kind of do what you wanted with the brand versus, you know, carrying the torch, so to speak, because it was kind of kicked out of the country, you guys brought it back and you could have your own creative flair attached to it?
Yeah, I think we had some really privileged meetings in New York with the teams with PMC. We got to fly over and we had a couple of days meeting with everyone from their social media team to their print team to the marketing and partnerships teams, and we learned a lot. And we weren't actually going to do a magazine, and then we realized how much of their revenue was tied to some form of print offering as well, because people loved the magazine. People wanted the cover. The magazine now, with the new owners of the Bragg Media, has left the market, which is quite sad but understandable. It's really expensive to run print in this country. But we left there going, okay, we've got all these great ideas. We have all of this support. Yes, we can do it our own way, which we definitely did. But because we just had the best of the best on tap, we made some really exciting editorial decisions. We were also the first globally to bring in the Rolling Stone Awards.
Okay.
As well, which then got picked up by the UK. And
that wasn't a thing?
Yeah,
wow.
No.
Yeah.
It was just Australia that had done it. Matt Coit had done a small version of the Rolling Stone Awards, and then we went quite bigger. And then they had this conclave over in New York where all the global editors were at the New York office, and we talked about the awards and how it was going and how we thought events were, such a really great revenue stream. And then Rolling Stone UK launched theirs, and Rolling Stone en Español launched theirs. And then Rolling Stone US got into events as well. They do events for their Musicians on Musicians magazine and everything.
It's such a massive brand. It's had so much history and, I guess, culture attached to it as well. Do you think that today's creators underestimate the cultural gravity of such a legacy brand, or are they right to kind of challenge the authority?
I think they're right to challenge it. I think that we're seeing this huge sway away from institutions and legacy logos towards personalities. And I think the reason for that is there's this huge distrust within media. And it makes sense. I read the stat that 65% of consumers are wanting to go to influencers and creators to help them understand the news. Like, that to me just makes total sense. I think that in a creator or a personality, it's more difficult to buy their opinion than it is a legacy masthead. And I noticed that with Rolling Stone and Bragg Media when we were doing podcasts, and we had one for the Music Network, we had one for Variety, we had one for Rolling Stone, and the engagement that we were getting because of the personalities that were involved and because it was video storytelling as well was far greater than a lot of the editorial we were doing. And we were having people come to us because of the personalities, not the masthead. And I also noticed that with the Rolling Stone magazine as well. Like, I was personally asked to be the writer for Tash Sultana's cover feature, for Troye Sivan's cover feature, for Keith Urban's cover feature. And that's not saying, oh, look, I'm so great. It's just that is what was important to the artist and what was important to the team around the artist. They were so interested in having this personality that they trust tell that story.
So when an artist is asking for you personally to be a part of sharing their article or helping them with their press, like, what is it that you felt like they were getting if they were to work with you versus another journalist?
I think it's that whole thing of gotcha journalism versus trust as well. Although I think a lot of people think I'm not the gotcha journalist, but I really am thinking of the fan in my head and not the artist in my head. I think it's so important not to write a piece or sit down with someone like we do in the podcast industry now and not ask the question that the fan wants answered. But I think there's a way of doing it. And I think I've been in situations where an artist has said something that I just know they didn't mean, but if I quoted them, it would be the end of their career.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember this happened when I was writing one cover feature. And I called up the artist, and they were overseas recording at the time, and they were like, what's so important that you need to talk to me? And I was like, I have this quote from you, and I'm going, and it's a question that the fans really want to know. And so I need to include your answer, and I'm going to read you your answer. And I read the answer, and this artist goes, oh, awesome.
Like, please don't write that.
I was like, would you like to have another crack at it? And they're like, absolutely. That's so not what I meant. I was like, that's the transcript. And I let them have another crack at it because I understood that wasn't what they meant. But I also understood that my job was to get that answer for that question that I know fans would want.
Oh, so many, I guess journalists would be like, this is perfect. I can pounce on this and get a viral moment.
Yeah. No, I think if you are a journalist, I think it's so much more important to nowadays, especially with how big fan bases are and how much they will come for you if you do the artist dirty. I think it's important to have a bit of understanding, compassion and class in journalism. And I think that there are definitely interviewees, perhaps it's not in music, in other sectors that definitely need that more hard-lined kind of gotcha journalism, Martha Stewart style questions. But I think definitely in music right now, I think fans really appreciate true connection between a journalist and a talent.
What do you think it is about gotcha journalism that infuriates people so much?
Infuriates the person on the other end or infuriates the community?
The community.
I think they put themselves in their shoes. I think they go, if that was me, I would freak out. And I think that most people are quite compassionate and they see that and go, that's so unfair. But then I also, you see the algorithm on Facebook especially, I like to call it the rage machine. And the trolls love it when, someone is held to account, when power especially is held to account. But if they're not a politician, if they're just an artist who perhaps misspoke, then I just think that compassion is needed.
It's having taste, even though it may be not to your benefit. But like you said, like artists, can have a lot going on in their lives. I imagine they can have bouts and swings and, roundabouts and ups and downs, and, they could be traveling abroad and they could have said the wrong thing. So it's hard to curate your life so eloquently, but it's nice to know that someone is in their corner that's going to help them.
Definitely. And I think that's such a privilege to be able to tell an artist's story. There's only so many ways that an artist can communicate who they are from their end. So as a journalist, to be able to show their impact on culture, to be able to communicate what they mean to a community, to a fan base, their influence, I think you should never take that lightly. You should take it quite seriously. And if you're going to sit there and just ask those gotcha journalism questions, I think that you're taking it too lightly. Like I think an even more meaningful contribution to culture is to get them talking about what means something to them.
I think it's such a beautiful take to take care to understand that there are these creative people that we need to support versus trying to catch them out and create headlines and go full TMZ on people.
I think we're kind of in a space where it's not overcorrecting but slightly correcting away from cancel culture a bit, which is nice. But I mean, if I was judged on my missteps and I was completely excommunicated from my job, from the industry because of a couple of mistakes that I've made, Lord help me. I don't think that it's right. I think that people do make mistakes. We're just humans living life, having a human experience. But I don't understand the pylons, and I never will. And I've been on the other end of them, but too. And I remember the first time someone attempted to cancel me. I was crying and I had a panic attack, and I hadn't had a panic attack in a long time, and I was just like, this is horrible. And I remember talking to my former co-founder, Luke Gergis, and he said, but the reason for it, the cancelling, was because I tried to give something to the industry that would better it. Like basically I tried to launch this program that would help the culture of our music industry. And I worked with a lot of people, and we did a lot of there was a lot of people involved that I paid to be involved. I thought that I did everything by the book, and the people that tried to cancel me weren't involved at all. And Luke said to me, and I'll always remember it, he said, there are some people in this world who do not want to make the world a better place unless they are the ones making it a better place.
Oh, that's prolific.
Yeah.
Clients want it all. A slick-looking website that can run their business and scale with their success. Wix Studio is built for that. Plan out your client's whole site in seconds with AI-powered site mapping and wireframing. Then when everyone's on the same page, jump into the creative, starting off in Figma or in the Wix Studio editor with super precise layouting tools like Grid, Stack, and Flexbox. Go above and beyond the brief with no-code animations, custom CSS, and built-in business solutions. And make your whole vision responsive in a click. And there's zero need to break a sweat when clients grow fast. A dynamic CMS with global design settings and reusable assets lets you turn one page into hundreds. Design smoother and deliver sooner. Go to wixstudio.com. Now, if you think about like the early parts of your career, you talk about how imposter syndrome felt like it hindered you at a certain point where you felt like you were around these amazing people and you didn't quite fit. Take me through that. Like, where was your mind at that time, and how did you find the fuel to kind of get through that, and what did you do about it?
Yeah, I feel like I had the type of imposter syndrome that was crippling. Like it was a daily thing. I'm not that religious, but I remember just praying all the time and being like, please God, please let me not mess up today. Like let the mask stay on. Let people not find out that I'm a complete fraud and have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. And I started to look internally about it. I started to, do some Googling and research, and I found that 70% of people have imposter syndrome. And I'm in really good company as well. Meryl Streep has it. Lady Gaga has it.
Like, come on.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they do pretty amazing things and they have imposter syndrome. But that actually wasn't the thing that helped me through it. The thing that helped me through it was this conversation I had with this young girl. She's Gen Z. And she said, she just made this offhand comment and it stuck with me. She was like, I feel like imposter syndrome is the most privileged thing ever. And I was like, you're right. Like if there was someone with less privilege than me in my role with the platforms that I had access to, they wouldn't be sitting there wasting their time going, oh, I don't deserve to be here. Oh, everyone's going to know I'm a fraud. They would just be building cool shit and getting on with it. And so that's what I did. Like I was just really changed my brain. And it's a conscious thing. I really do believe that you are the architect of your own reality. And I have to consciously remind myself that it's a privilege to have imposter syndrome, and let's just keep building cool shit and get on with it.
Why is it a privilege to have imposter syndrome?
Because I think like I am a white passing female who's like, I'm New Zealand Māori, but the way that I have been able to move in this world has been extremely easy. Like I don't have the kind of barriers or experiences when I walk into a room that so many other people do. And it's not just like visual privilege that I have from being white passing. It's like having a loving mother and father. It's having a support. So if everything messed up in my life, I could move in with my mum. Like that would be okay. My dignity would be shot, but I could move in with my mum. So these are privileges that not everyone has. And I think that I wonder if because I have these wonderful privileges, I have used some of my brain space to overthink things.
It's an important, I think, notion that people understand what's really at play when they think imposter syndrome, right? Because we can get caught up in the tailspin of woe is me, something, undeserving is here, and then you're squabbling with what opportunities you do have. Which comes to another point you talk about, which is you mentioned that your platform is your responsibility, not a pedestal, and that this was an unlock for you in your career. What's changed in how you show up in leadership, content, or your personal brand since that shift?
Well, it's interesting because when I was younger, I didn't want to be the face of anything. I didn't really care about being front-facing. I wanted to be a storyteller, and I see myself now as the storyteller's storyteller. I get to tell the stories of some of the coolest people on earth. But it was actually Luke who said, I want you to be the face of the business. And I pushed back on that. I actually said no. And I know you're laughing because it seems crazy, but I really struggled with it. My role was editor-in-chief. I felt like I needed to be in the weeds. I felt like I needed to be signing off on every piece of content, both branded and non-branded, to make sure it aligned with our values, to make sure it resonated with our audiences. And I was like, if I'm the face of the business, I won't have time to be in the weeds with all of the content and signing off on everything. And I remember him saying, why are you holding yourself back? Like, what is this? And I realized it was fear. I was so afraid of putting myself out there. There's that whole phrase, she girl bossed too close to the sun. Like, oh God, I girl bossed too close to the sun. And I know that people joke when they say that.
I've never heard this phrase.
It's what girls say when they're too good at their job and they take on too much, and they're like, now I'm like, there's too much going on. I'm overwhelmed. But I have seen women at executive levels become the face of their business and then have a target on their back. And I don't know whether that is a gender thing. Maybe it is for me, just from my point of view as a woman. I don't know whether it's an Australian tall poppy syndrome thing. I don't know whether it's a corporate structure thing, but I have watched that and I have been fearful of that. And then interestingly, of course I was holding myself back. Of course I was acting out of fear when I said no. And one of my highest value is growth. And so I just said, okay, let's do this. Let's be brave. Even though I'm scared. And when I moved into becoming the face of the business, I was involved in commercial and editorial meetings and outcomes. And we saw an uplift of 30% of our brand deals that we did because I was involved. And we had those brands say, we want to have Poppy involved in this piece of content or this event that we're sponsoring. And I'm not saying like Poppy is great. What I'm saying, my point to anyone listening, is that you need to have a face of your brand. If you are running a media business right now, if you're running any business right now, you need to have a face of your brand, and you need to have that person know your values and represent you in a way that you're really happy with, which is usually the founder and the CEO. And I think that you've probably noticed this trend too. We're seeing CEOs not so much in boardrooms and in one-on-one meetings with their leadership teams. We're seeing them in rooms like this, doing podcasts with people like you.
Now, when you think about media and how it's shifted, like you said, multiple times in your career, what was the single biggest external threat that traditional media underestimated until it was too late? And was it the power of personal branding?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's this, oh, you gave me the answer. I love it. There was this LinkedIn research that's been making the rounds, and it said that if you started a business brand and a personal brand on the same day and you posted the same content at the same time, when the business brand reached 1,000 followers, the personal brand would have already reached 20,000 followers by just being a personal brand.
That's a 1-to-20 ratio. That's massive.
Exactly. So that shows you where engagement is. It shows you where fan consumption is. It shows you why we're seeing the fall of mastheads like CNN and Foxtel, and we're seeing the rise of Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy and Joe Rogan, and then selfishly through Curious Media, we're seeing Ben Lee, who has a podcast with Ione Skye, who's an actress, and their podcast they have together is called Weirder Together. And we're seeing his, I guess, social cred rise because of podcasting and him being a trustworthy personality. He also does a really good hot take, which people love.
People love a good hot take. Yeah. The juicier, the spicier, the better.
Yeah.
And even ourselves, like we've noticed that we've had quite an uplift of credibility because of the podcast and some of the guests we're affiliated with, etc. When you think about how people are producing media now as like figureheads of companies, what is it that you felt like traditional media could capitalize on if they wanted to kind of sustain a portion of the market?
You need to have a face of the business. If you are not doubling down on your personalities within the business, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And I think, that was one of the reasons why I left the Bragg Media. When we sold, the company that took over, they really wanted to double down on the mastheads, and I understand that. But at the time, I wanted to do personality-driven content. I wanted to invest in shows. I had 3 podcasts going. I wanted to do a lot more podcasts. And I always want to be where media is or where it's going. And I feel like the media industry is like boxing, where if you're not anticipating the next move, you're going to get caught in the flurry. So your best,
you have to duck and weave. You have to predict the next move.
Exactly. So that's where I try and be with media. And when I was at the Bragg Media, I noticed what was happening with this personality-driven content, faces over logos, personalities over institutions. And I knew that's where I needed to be. And that's why I started Curious Media.
So like, for example, like when you're interviewing an artist, and let's say you're in a setting where you're writing down notes and you're curating their answers versus a live interview, the written telegraph versus the audio telegraph, is there a difference of the story being lost, or you'd think it's the same thing?
Oh, definitely. This is why I love podcasting. So with a written piece that has been created from an interview, that's a sit-down interview, especially with Rolling Stone cover stories, right? So sometimes you get about a week with them. That's hours and hours and hours of just observing this person, really like kind of enmeshing yourself in their life and being that fly on the wall as well, which is a very privileged place to be.
I didn't know you guys had that much contact for those cover stories.
It's a cover story. You have to. So you've got all this context. You can't put it all in the written feature. There's just not enough room for it. At most we would get 10 pages for it. At most it would be 3,500 words. So really you're only getting, as a reader, 20 minutes with that artist. Whereas a podcast, you're getting so much more. You're sitting down, you're seeing all of the facial expressions as well. Like you're actually understanding the tone of what was said. It's not being edited and changed to make them seem smarter, sassy, or whatever. And I think that that's such a big thing when you're trying to build trust in market as well. Like I was looking at, do you know the 7-hour rule when it comes to marketing?
No.
Okay, so there's a 7-hour rule where consumers need 7 hours in order to trust someone with a piece of content if you're doing it through content. So if I break it down, you can either do it through, say, 3.5 hour podcasts.
Okay.
Or 420 30-second social snippets. So I know
That's a lot.
which one I would rather do. And that's with the one person, right? So in order to build trust, in order to build familiarity, you either need 2 3.5 hour podcast episodes or 420 30-second shorts. So the power of the podcast is massive. And if a brand is not investing in long form content, especially video content, then they're not prioritizing trust.
That's a powerful statement because the trust building piece is something that everyone talks about, right? Like one of the things that we find when we talk to personal brands and we talk to clients, almost like an NPC response in a video game. It's like, what do you want to create in your community? The first thing they say is, well, we want to build trust. And you're saying you can't create trust unless you have time sat with said audience.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can build that. There's a reason why Joe Rogan's podcast episodes go for hours and hours and hours. And I do feel like I know him. And in some ways, on some things, I do trust him. And I think that's that long form versus short form content. Long form is so important for building trust.
I have a story, and I've shared this on the pod before, but I'll share it again. And it's I was at LAX flying from Los Angeles to Mexico City, and I was about to board the flight, and everyone's lining up, and I turn around, and right behind me was Lewis Howes. For those of you that don't know who Lewis Howes is, he was like one of the big dogs at like podcasting early days. And my immediate psychological response is like, bro, dap me up. So good to see you. Right? Because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, he's my friend.
Yeah.
We're friends.
Yeah.
And he's like, who the hell are you? And he's looking at me like, who is this idiot? And he's like, hey, what's up, man? And he was so lovely. And, we got to kind of hang out in the terminal for about 4 hours in Mexico, and we get to become friends and whatnot. But like, it's that thing you're talking about, because I consumed his content for like, God, hundreds of hours on so many drives, and you just think you know the person, and you can create a proxy relationship through media.
It's a parasocial relationship. Like that's why music fans are so powerful. Like that is why the Swifties cannot be messed with because they have a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift that she actually understands and respects. And, I could never be a famous person. I could never be that level of fame where strangers come up to you and they want to hug you and they want to tell you that they have a tattoo of the cat that you have on their arm. And for Taylor Swift or people of that level, they understand that and they treat that with respect. And that's why they'll always sign the autograph. That's why they'll always take the picture, because they know that person has a relationship with them that they don't actually physically know about, but they can completely understand.
And are there tells or signals that reveal when someone's playing a role as an artist or as a online personality versus just someone living their truth?
Like in interviews that I've done and things like that?
Just in general, like I think if you consume someone's content, you can kind of get a cadence of like, this person's not quite congruent with what they're saying. I don't quite believe them. I'm not quite sure. Mm-hmm. When just things feel a little fishy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that like... I guess let's point it more at the artists in particular. Like when you're working with musicians, do you find that the artists that are more truly aligned with themselves are getting better success than those that are trying to play a role?
Definitely. Fans have the biggest bullshit detector. They are so good at seeing through the bullshit. Like if you are an artist these days and you are not authentic and you are not being truly yourself, there is no way you'll have success. Fans won't let you.
Why?
Because they're paying for your life. And they don't want to pay for something that's fake.
I'm getting chills because it's so simple. It's a matter of like someone is subscribing, like you said, to your life. They don't want it to be fabricated unless it's maybe hitting a specific entertainment box, if you will.
Even the entertainment box. Like look at what it takes in order to go to an artist's show. I remember I had this really privileged moment with Keith Urban. He took me into Kudos Bank Arena. It was completely empty. He was about to sell out 3 dates there. And he said, I always play to the cheap seats, the ones right up the back.
Wow.
And I said, why is that? And he said, because everyone has had a journey to come here and they paid for their ticket just like everyone else. And I'm here to give them a show. That's my job. I'm not here to just like mess around. I'm here to entertain them. And he's like, and maybe they took a train and a plane and maybe they had to pay for a hotel. And he's genuinely, Keith Urban's the most beautiful man.
Wow.
And he genuinely has really thought about a fan's journey to his show. And so you think about the time that takes. And then you think about the fans of pop artists or really popular artists that have these really interesting cult followings where they dress up for them. And that takes time, thinking about your outfit and thinking about like how you're going to prove to the artist and hope that they see you to show that you are a super fan. And also they get there so early and they wait in line, like sometimes 24 hours beforehand, just so they can be at that front barrier, so that they're artists that they have been a fan of, that they have this parasocial relationship with, can see them and can look into their eyes and they can sing the lyrics back to them and they can say, I get you, I understand you. So if that person is all smoke and mirrors, oh, you're just breaking hearts left, right and center.
And we're seeing more unfiltered niche experts coming out and creating massive trust signals, like you said, Joe Rogan, etc. Why does raw, imperfect knowledge resonate more than polished perfection?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I remember when we were doing our socials first strategy at the Bragg Media, we did really polished like kind of these beautiful edits, and we got some really talented creative directors and videographers involved, and they were tanking. And then we did, like I like to call them the JB Hi-Fi editions of our videos, you know, and it's just like, looks like they've just taken crayons to stuff.
You go into JB Hi-Fi and it feels like everything's been drawn.
Yeah, it's just like kids did it. Well, it's that DIY thing. I think that fans want to see stuff by their friends, and if they see something that's super slick and polished, they might engage with it for sure, but they're less likely to share it and be excited about it if it looks like it's done by a corporation, because, you know, fans are very anti-establishment.
I think fans right now are kind of running amok, right? It feels like a bit of a riot. It feels like everyone's just fanning out and just testing different stuff. And I feel like there's a bit of a reset happening on the content creation landscape, if you will.
I saw this statistic where they did a study in the US of young people, and they said, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And over 50% said a content creator.
That's crazy.
And my initial thought was, oh, good luck. And then 5 minutes later, I was like, you know what? They could, because you can. I love this right now, how you can be a millionaire nail technician, and you can be, because you create amazing content around it.
And a little e-commerce store or something.
Yeah, you can just love Lego, and you just like film yourself playing with Lego, and that just go nuts because you find your community. That's what fans want now. They don't just want the product, they want the story behind the product, and they want to know who's making the product, and they need to know that that person making the product aligns with their own personal values.
Why do you think that's so important to get people to part ways with their money?
I think it's because we're such consumers, and we can have anything we want when we want. And so we want to make sure that our money is going to people that we do support. But sorry, your question is, why is it hard for them to part with their money?
Well, why do you think, like for example, when you think about like the Lego story I just shared with you, and think about someone else who kind of likes Lego, goes, you know what, I didn't really want to buy a lightning kit, but like that story resonates, and like, you know what, I'm going to buy one to support this guy. I feel like there's a mechanism where it's like, good for them. Like, I want to be a part of that. Like, they're participating in the story. They're becoming a part of the narrative versus just going, oh, like that solves a problem, let me buy it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like, I think it comes back to the anti-establishment thing. I think it comes back to personalities over institutions. I think they're going, I want to support my fellow man. That could be me one day. I think they see themselves in them. Do
you think that the generational change has shifted that establishment mindset? Like, for example, if you look at Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, is there an increase in anti-establishment in the younger generations?
I think increase in anti-establishment for media, yes. Yeah, I think that, you know, Gen X had their own anti-establishment passions. But I think in media especially, we're just seeing the veil come down, and we've got so much information, and so much inside information is now being shared thanks to social media, thanks to Reddit threads. And I think that they're just thinking time is currency, and people want to be investing their time where it deserves to be invested.
And obviously, if you have more of a niche story, there's just an easier way to access the same people. Like, for example, I can imagine my mother or my father when I was young, like they didn't have the ability to just log onto the internet at night and find people that have the exact same passions in the exact same ways that they do. So it's like people are more pulled together on opinions, perhaps, and then they're able to segregate easier. Whereas before, people felt like they had to kind of join a cause.
I think so, and I think there were less causes to join, and now there's so many. Like we just have this influx of information. And with that information comes all these different communities that we can join now too. And I love the fact that our idols used to be, the actors and the musicians and just like a few famous presenter celebrities here and there. And now it is the nail tech who's just as famous, but only, and to millions of people, but not everyone knows that person. Whereas I feel like we had a few idols that just everyone in the Western world knew. And now it's in the millions.
And do you think that this is, I guess, across the board, a net win for everyone if there's less people at the top, if you will, and everything's kind of spread out a bit more?
I think that I guess money is being more spread out, which is good. I love the entry point to being a millionaire being lower. That's great.
Yo, my name's Dane Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then I started my agency, Rival. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral and Rival makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about Rival.
Rival is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.
Now, something I'm curious about is to take me into the helm of what it was like to drive a physical print magazine. So what was the technical nous that you had to constantly remind the whole team of, like, guys, remember to do X, Y, Z? Like, what was that like driving such a masthead behind music?
The wild thing about print is that the deadline waits for no one. It cannot be moved. You miss it, you're stuffed. So I had never really done a print magazine. The Music Network print magazine had left by the time I had become editor. And I remember it being end of 2019 and me and Luke deciding we were going to bring Rolling Stone magazine back to the market in print. And I called my sister, who was a graphic designer and creative director. And I said, yeah, we're doing this print magazine. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I'll just figure it out, I guess. And Katie started asking me all these questions. She was like, well, have you seen the printing press? And do you know what kind of embellishments you will have? And do you know what the GSM size of the paper is? And I was like, Katie, you are speaking another language. Can you stop? And I remember her saying this. She goes, Poppy, I think that you are very capable, but I am very worried. And I was like, okay, if Katie's worried, we need to sort this shit out. So I said, can you fly to Sydney? She was pregnant at the time. She was looking after 2 kids. She was working for the Gold Coast City Council in a very cushy job as a designer there. And I said, can you fly to Sydney and just have all the meetings that I need to have with the people that I need to have the meetings with, because you know what you're talking about and I have no idea. And she's like, absolutely. So she came to Sydney. We met with the printers. I'm sitting there. They're speaking another language. And then she put together a schedule and she's like, on in order to get the print magazine out here, you will need this ready by this time. She basically created this whole project management system for us. The team, of course, fell in love with her because she's so amazing, knows what she's doing. And before she left, I said, I need you. Like, I cannot, like, that's great that you put together the schedule, but I can't do this every single quarter. And because we were quarterly. And I said, will you work with us, but just part-time? And so she was like, oh, stuff it. I can take this on. That's fine. I'm on maternity leave. And then she became so crucial within the business. We brought her on full time. Before she left the business around the same time that I did, she was head of studio. So branding across the entire business. And the business had won the head of studio Mumbrella Award that year, thanks to her. And cover of the year, which she had designed.
Damn.
Yeah.
Shout out.
She's Katie Taylor. Amazing.
Go, Katie.
So, yeah, and to take you into that process, it was a quarterly magazine, but it was weekly meetings, thousands of Slack messages every single day. And then that's just the editorial. And then you've obviously, there's the subbing and all of that, and I won't bore you with that whole editing and fact-checking process, but that exists. And I was editing both on the digital version, but then also the physical version, which I loved. Like, you just kind of, you know, you curl up and you read the whole magazine and you put your little notes in, and I kind of liked that process. And then there's the photo shoot, which is a whole other kettle of fish of dealing with different personalities and agendas and budgets, with which we had a shoestring. And that was fun, though, to put together. Like, being one of my favorite shoots that we did was with Troye Sivan over in LA. And it had to be in LA. He couldn't come to Australia for the chat. So me and my sister flew over, me and Katie, and she directed the whole thing. She got all of these amazing people, from the makeup artist to the stylist to the photographer. Everyone was queer, which was so cool. And I remember Troye Sivan walking into the dressing room that we had with all the outfits, and there's the stylist there and the photographer there, both guys. And he's like, hello, ladies. And it was just this fun day of just like playing amazing music and him just playing dress up and just being a total star. And Katie just in her element, like just running the show, telling everyone like where to go, what to do, in her beautiful way. And having Troye Sivan also be part of that photo picking process, which was super important for the covers as well, because in the past, Rolling Stone US has picked their own, they of course they do, they pick their own cover shot. And if the artist doesn't like it, they won't share it. In fact, they'll there's been instances where they'll call out Rolling Stone and be like, you did me dirty.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is have the artist involved, get them over the shoulder of Katie as they're picking through the photos, mock it up for them. And Troye didn't pick his cover, but he picked like his favorite shots, and we chose one of his favorite shots.
What's something that runs through your mind when you're meeting new people? Like, you're meeting these massive musicians that are praised by their fan base, and it's like, there's nothing I could say that would impress this person. Like, how do you approach someone with that level of fame and magnitude, like a Keith Urban, and not be weird and not be nervous? Like, how do you really try to build rapport with someone with so much altitude?
Yeah, I think you actually, a lot of people might say, they're human, they're like everyone else. They're not like everyone else. I am a mere mortal. They are amazing. They do incredible things with their creativity. I'm just a fan over here. So I wouldn't say just think of them as human, because I really actually don't think of them as human. I try and impress them with my research. So I try and make it clear that I haven't just turned up to try and get a pick at the end. I haven't just turned up to have a conversation because I love their latest single, that I've actually done my work, I've done my homework, and that I understand their impact on culture. And I'll give you an example of this. When I first interviewed Tones and I for the Rolling Stone cover story, I flew to Melbourne for it. I went to Tones' house in Mornington Peninsula. That was like an hour drive from the airport. I'm on my way there. She'd just hit like 1 billion streams on Dance Monkey, which is now at over 3 billion or something.
It happened so quickly.
It's literally the most streamed song on Spotify by a female. So Taylor Swift doesn't have
I didn't know that.
that award. Adele does not have that award. It's Tones and I's Dance Monkey. So, but Dance Monkey was huge, obviously, but she wasn't, this behemoth Tones that we know now. She wasn't selling out arenas at that point. I walk into her house and she looks like she doesn't really want me to be there. She's got her friends there. They're all like watching YouTube. They're playing around with like this Shakti mat on the ground. She's got a crew around her. One room is literally filled with so many platinum plaques that it has filled the room. And she's like, I don't know what to do with these. So she's got a lot of people that want a piece of Tones and I at this point. And I sit there and I ask her the first question, which was, so tell me about where you grew up. And she said, Victoria. Nothing else. Nothing. I said, where in Victoria? And she goes, just Victoria. And I was like, fuck, I have come all the way here. I have flown here. I need a cover story. This is 3,500 words I need to file on this. This is also our first magazine, our first cover story. It's got to be good. And I've got a barrier. I've got a wall made of cement in front of me. And so I just stopped and I said, hey, Tones, I have this thing where I think that when people talk about the biggest pop exports to come out of Australia, it's going to be Sia, it's going to be Kylie Minogue, and it's going to be you. And I get you. And I understand that there is so much hate around you at the moment. There are people that are attacking you for your physicality. There are people that are saying that Dance Monkey is a shit song. But I want you to know that I get the music and I am so upset by the trolls and the hate. And I think you're fucking amazing. And then she kind of slowed down and she eased into it. And she let me in. And then we talked about the trolls and she literally cried in front of me. And she's like, I'm out here flying the flag for Australia all over the world, saying I'm so proud to be Australian. And back home, I'm being called the most horrible names under the sun. I just don't understand. It took that minute of just me going, I've done my research. I get it. I understand your impact on the music industry.
What do you think that she heard in her mind and in her feelings in that moment?
I think I went from journalist to someone who could be in her inner circle, who gets her, because I think she felt like there were so many people who just didn't get her music. And you have to remember, Tones and I was doing it and is still largely doing it completely solo. Her debut album has not one collaboration. There is not one song on her debut album that was co-written with anyone else. Dance Monkey has one songwriter, Tony Watson. So she is a Lone Ranger. And she also has a childhood where it was really rough for her as well. So she's kind of had her back up against the wall and has been fighting her way through the industry from the start.
What did you experience in that moment?
So much like anxiety. I was like, I have to go. Like this is not it. Maybe I come back another day. I don't know what to do. I was just like, and I honestly have never experienced the feeling of getting off on the wrong foot so quickly with an interviewee. And I managed to turn it around and I thank God that I did. My God.
Great job. And I imagine she probably got a call from a manager and she's like, you got to do this interview. And she's probably like, oh, okay, I got to do this. Versus like something that she was really briefed on.
Totally. Yeah. And then I saw her, we hung out again, of course, a few times. And I was backstage with her at Laneway Festival. And I was in her dressing room and she said to me, she was like, I don't give a fuck that I cried. You can put it in the article. I don't care. It's just like, you're part of the family now. I was like, okay, cool.
And what do you think is like your gift at building rapport with artists? Because obviously you were able to empathize with her in a moment where she felt attacked and her back was against the wall. Are there other techniques that you typically use when, let's say, someone who is a big star and they're not really in such a negative position, but they're just used to people schmoozing them? How else can you, other than like the research, how can you build rapport and get into that interpersonal conversation faster rather than getting that surface level tension?
I think because I am obsessed with the music first and the person. Well, with artists, it's quite interesting. You are obsessed with the music, and it tells you so much about the person. But I think if to give a piece of advice, it would be more interested in their work, and show your research around their work first, then the personal stuff. Because a lot of people can have like a bit of a wall up when you decide to go personal. It's a big thing. So for me, when I do these interviews, I like on the record, my podcast, it's all about the music. It really is. You end up talking about personal stuff and they end up going there. But when you have that intention of this is about your craft, this is about your entire existence essentially, because an artist can't live if they're not making music. Like it's just impossible for them. So if they get to talk about that on a deeper level and revisit that, then they're going to be way more open. And then you can slide in the personal questions. What does this lyric really mean?
Yeah,
That
what are you
kind of
really
stuff.
saying there?
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many lyrics that I'm just like, I want to know exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
Now you've done such a great job in so many different kind of types of media, right? Because whether it be music or now podcasting, which is like something you're absolutely crushing right now, what's been something you've kind of brought with you from that, I guess, magazine era that you kind of are injecting into this new era of business that you're in?
I think it's long form storytelling. I think like from print, it would be giving people further context, giving people further nuance, like I think we do live in a world where we have a very short attention span. I think it might be between 1.2 and 1.7 seconds.
Yeah.
So
I can't even wait for the last 5 seconds on a microwave. I'm like, get that thing out.
really,
Yeah.
you'd rather have it slightly cold.
Yeah, I'm like,
I love it.
give me the food.
I got
yeah.
no time. Yeah. So because of the short attention span, we have lost so much context. And I think the beauty around podcasting is that people know that they're going into it for a longer ride. They know that it's not just, if you click on a podcast, you see how long it is. You see that it's an hour. You're like, okay, strap in, let's go. So you have this very intentional back and forth between you and the listener or the viewer. And I obviously want to bring that from the print time. Like I loved the fact that we did launch in COVID, which was hard, but we gave people some time away from doom scrolling and they were sitting with the print magazine, kind of a lost art in some way. And I think that it's that long form storytelling that I want to keep being involved in. And when you get to, and this is your entire business with agency, it's like you get to sit with someone and go really into the weeds on things, and you don't get taken out of context if you're an interviewee as well. And I think that that's why a lot of people guest on podcasts, because they're not going to take that one quote and make it mean something else.
Yeah, it's so interpretive when you see a short format piece of content. Also, like as a creator, like you being a creator and I being a creator myself, like when I go to, speak at an event or I meet a fan or whatever, and they're like, dude, I listened to that episode and this blew my mind. I'm like, whoa, this person like sat there for 2 hours and listened to me and the guest? That's crazy. Whereas like if someone's like, oh, I saw that reel you did, you're like, yeah, cool, whatevs. Like there's something special about...
Yeah, you and a million others.
Yeah. Get on the train. But when someone like is I guess consuming something in long format, there's something more special about that.
Definitely. And I think that the guest just really appreciates that opportunity to go deep. Like you look at a public personality's promo schedule in a campaign. It's a 6-minute radio interview if you're lucky. It's 5 minutes on live TV on the Today Show or Sunrise. It's a couple of sit downs or phone calls with music blogs and things like that, if you're a musician. And then there's the podcast. And I'm finding that big name artists will carve out an hour of their time to sit down with you. Whereas previously I was, you were fighting with, especially with the big names, you were fighting for 10 minutes with them. And they're willing to do it because they know that they're not going to be taken out of context. They know that they don't have to just think in quotes and speak in quotes. They can take you on a journey with them.
It does feel quite brief. Like we've been interviewed for Branders Magazine and they were just looking for the hooky one-liners. And you're like, oh, I thought we were going to hang and like chat and like get into it.
Yeah, it's in and out, really.
In and out.
And that's been an interesting thing when you interview people who are used to those kinds of interviews. They give you those short answers in and out, and you're like, no.
Yeah, come on, lay it on me, man.
Let's elaborate. Let's go there.
Tell me some crazy stories.
Yeah.
Now, after exiting, a successful company, why did you choose to go straight back into build from scratch again?
I'm always trying to be where media is at, and I got this amazing taste for podcasting. And when I saw that the new owners just wanted to invest in their mastheads and weren't really wanting to double down on personalities, I just knew that's where I had to be. And so I started having, in October last year, before I resigned, I started having a couple of conversations in market, which amazingly ended up, some of those conversations ended up with those people wanting to do podcasts with me now through Curious Media, because podcasting is booming, as you know. And then I just so happened to be introduced to Steve Grace, my co-founder at Curious, and he has a recruitment company and he was kind of dabbling with media, like just as like a side hustle kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
What was he doing exactly?
so he had a blog called Balance the Grind, where he would interview. I was actually interviewed for it years before, which is so funny.
I like the name, by the way. I don't know what it
Balance
means.
the
But
Grind. Yeah,
cool.
it's kind of for like founders and startups and people running businesses, like life hacks, health tips,
Cool.
that kind of thing. How do you balance the grind, basically? So he had that, and then he has his Nudge Productions, so the recruitment company is called the Nudge Group. So he had this production company as well, where he was doing a few podcasts and some video for certain brands, because he had a lot of founders and VCs that wanted to get their story across and help with recruitment, and video storytelling is where it's at. So, and then I had come from, really being enmeshed in media and wanting to get into podcasting. And I met with him hilariously because he's a recruiter. And I was like, well, maybe you can find me a job. And he was like, I'm really interested in media. And we just sat and talked for like an hour at our now office. And we talked about media and the importance of video and how easy the entry point is, but how also easy it is to level up. Like if you just add video, if you just add that extra camera, you're doing better than so many others. And I didn't think anything of that meeting. I thought he was super interesting. He was super entrepreneurial. He's like the perfect kind of entrepreneur that you want to partner with. Really amazing at thinking blue sky, lots and lots of energy, proper ADHD, like all the best entrepreneurs. But I didn't think he was ready to start a media company. I just thought he was interested and excited because that's just him. And so I left that meeting thinking, if he could just rein it in and he could just, like all those ideas, if he could just have it be podcasting and then an owned audience, so a newsletter, then I think that we could build something. But I don't think he's ready. And I just kind of left it. And then I received this really long email. So Steve Grace has dyslexia. And so reading emails, writing emails is a struggle for him. So he does a lot of his emailing and writing long form ideas down at like 11 o'clock at night, because that's the only time that he has like peace to just try and concentrate, because it takes him longer than a lot of other people. And so I got this very late, long email of, I want to do this with you. I want to build this with you. And how would this part work? And what do you think of this part? And how would we structure this? And I just replied and was like, here's how I would do it. It's kind of similar to how I met Luke Gerges in a way, my former co-founder at the Bragg Media, just to do a little sidestep. He had been having interviews and chatting to people because he wanted to start a media company. And I thought that he just wanted to chat and he wanted help and advice. And that's what I gave him. If I was going to start a media company, I'd probably do this, probably double down on this. I probably wouldn't do this stuff. And he was secretly interviewing me. So I sent, just to go back to my Steve Grace story, I sent him off how I thought the business could be ran. And I was also very honest with him, like, media is tough. Like, it is hard to monetize. You need 50 different revenue streams and you just pray that one will stick. And you know that as well.
Yeah.
And then within a couple of weeks, I had resigned and had started bubbling away with Curious Media, and then we launched in March this year.
What has been in this shift, in this period of your life, something that you're sad to lose and something else you're happy to gain?
I'm so sad to not be working with my sister. Oh my God, we had so much fun. And because we've known each other our whole life, we speak in a language that no one really understands. Like we would be on a meeting and we would just go, yeah, this and this, and we'll do this and this. And we're like, okay, cool, we're good. And then everyone else in the meeting will go, wait, what are we doing? Like we understand each
What
other.
happened?
Yeah.
What
They just spoke in another
what
language.
did you agree to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would also be very fun to like have pretend fights through Slack that people thought were serious.
Oh, really?
Like I'd be like, I can't believe you're wearing my top today. Like, what the fuck? I can't believe you took that. Like, how dare you? And she's like, come and get it, bitch. And yeah, people thought we were actually fighting, which was fun. But also, she's just so smart. Her superpower is she can go into any company, she can recognize the inefficiencies, and she can find a quicker, faster, cheaper way to do things. And I just miss that energy, and having that, literally working with your sister is amazing. It's so much fun. And also it was beneficial to the business too, because we talk multiple times a day, every day anyway. And then you add those hours up to be what was really just us talking about work and problem solving, troubleshooting the whole time. Like it was just beneficial. So I have really missed working with her. She now works with Luke, which is like, Luke was exited. And then he's the CEO of Providor, the food company, but he also manages Simone Yauch, who is a content creator based in the US. And she has a whole brand and she has products. And Katie has been brought in as COO of that company and she's killing it. And for the first time, they're profitable.
Oh, that's fantastic.
There you go.
And
But it was
before you move on, why do you think you and your sister Katie are so close?
We're close in age, and it took a long time to get close, actually. So when my parents split when I was 11, she kind of became my second mum. So we had that dynamic of her just kind of helping me through life, like sorting stuff out for me, kind of being that person that you'd call up and be like, I don't know what to do. Like this guy was mean to me, or what do we do here, blah, blah. And we just had that dynamic. And then I went through my teenage years and I was a mess, literally making a mess of my entire life, just depressed, we did not have a relationship then because I didn't want to be honest with her with like how bad my depression was and how much I was sabotaging my own life. And then I made the switch and I was like, I need to move to Sydney. I need to do this internship. We're getting serious. This is life now. And that was in 2010. And then we developed this really close friendship based after that. So I think we have, been through the eye of the storm together. And I think we have this best friend dynamic. And I also think that I genuinely just want to see her win all the time. And she genuinely just wants to support me and see me win. And she's my biggest advocate and my biggest cheerleader. And that's the only way that a true friendship can thrive, if there's no jealousy, no competition, just advocacy.
It's so rare to find that, even among siblings. Yeah. And what's something that you're excited to gain in this new season?
I think I just want to make another business profitable. Like I think we did such a great job with the Bragg Media, and I think it's really hard in media to have a profitable company. To reach it to a point of acquisition was such a win. And I'm not saying I want to sell Curious Media on because I'm so all in, but I want us to get to that point where we are humming, and I want our curious creators, that's what I call them, our hosts, I want them to be making the kind of money that they should be making. Like I know that you understand this. I think that we have so many incredible podcast hosts that are not being paid what they should be paid because the market in Australia hasn't cottoned on to the importance of podcasting, and they're looking at certain metrics for engagement that they perhaps shouldn't be looking at. And I think that why doesn't Australia have, a $4 million deal for a podcast host in this market? Like we should have that kind of stuff. I want that for my curious creators.
I think you raise a really good point. Australia always seems to be, from my experience, between 5 to 10 years behind the rest of the world. And if we look across the pond at the UK and we look at what's happening in the US with podcasting, it's become like a serious professional media space. obviously with big names like Stephen Bartlett and, Joe Rogan, etc. When you think about the Australian climate and the space that we're in right now, I feel personally like it's a tinderbox about to go up in a good way.
I like that.
And the reason I'm so excited and so confident around this is if you look at what's happening with Nova, if you look at what happened, did you see what happened with the Stephen Bartlett Flight Story catalog?
No, what happened?
So Nova has bought exclusive rights for the Flight Story catalog here in the Asia Pac market.
That's cool.
Which is an early sign, I think, or a signal or a nod to the future of what we're about to experience.
Are you annoyed that you didn't buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what the
I'm
fuck?
Like, damn, fuck, it's so fucking smart.
How much did they pay for it?
God, I don't even know, but I can't imagine it wasn't a lot because you think about what Stephen has created and how big that catalog is and what that means for the Asia or the Australian market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is great. I think that we're in an education stage with brands right now. Like we're always following the US. We're always kind of second to the party in the Western world. And it's a multi-billion-dollar market in the US. Why shouldn't it be in Australia?
I think it's going to be. I feel confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that whole, I remember when music streaming entered the market here, there were 26 platforms. I don't know if you remember that, we of course had Deezer and Spotify and Apple and a whole bunch of others that I can't even remember because it boiled down to the three.
But Australia does feel like it's like radically separated from the world.
Yeah, we're a testing market for so many tech companies because we're so separate from the world that if they test something in Australia and it bombs, they don't care because no one else will know.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was like traveling through like LA, Miami, and New York, people were like, oh God, Australia, never go there. It's so far away. It's so dangerous. I'm like, whoa. Like, I don't know what our global brand is, but it's not that bad. Like, you don't walk into the airport and get attacked by snakes. Like, it's.
I know. That's a funny global brand. I remember talking to someone in LAX and she was like, I won't even take a 6-hour flight. That's way too far. Like,
Yeah.
I can't be in a plane for that long. I'm like, we're in planes for 24 hours.
Yeah,
Like,
sometimes
wow.
30.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about like your mission at Curious Media, what I love, and you've quoted this, is to unearth and share uncomfortable stories. What do you mean by this?
So we have a tagline that we are asking our viewers, our fans, to walk towards the uncomfortable. And
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I found that that's what's missing in a lot of podcasts.
Like walk into the.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Walk into that uncomfortable situation. That's where growth is. That's where vulnerability is. That's where authenticity is. The reason why we called it Curious Media was because that's the best thing that you need in order to have a good podcast interview. That's what you need in order to be a high achiever is the curiosity. But to walk towards the uncomfortable came from me and Steve talking about our biggest bugbear with podcasts. We were like, when you're sitting listening to a podcast and you're like, why didn't you ask that question? Like, this is the person that did that thing. Like, why aren't you actually going there with them? And I'm not saying gotcha journalism. I'm saying you have those uncomfortable conversations in partnership with your guest. You previously talk to them and say, you've never talked about this. Can we go there with you? Or they half answer and then the interviewer doesn't follow up because they've kind of like just focusing on the questions instead of what you're doing right now, which is just being immersed in the conversation and letting it flow. Like you're very good at it, actually.
Oh, I'll take that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll take that from you.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great compliment.
Yeah, so it was kind of our thing that we felt was missing from the podcast industry. And I mean, I recently was a guest on No Business Being a Castano, and their whole thing is the uncomfortable conversations. And I literally said, ask me anything. And I'm the producer of that show. And I was like, I'll talk about how I don't want kids. It's cool. And I thought that's what we'll talk about. And then they asked me about my divorce, and they asked me about like my relationship, and they asked me all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I should have known this was coming. But it was good. I've had such an amazing response to being open about my divorce and being open about my relationship with Daron. And it's just validated everything that I knew about podcasting, which was that authenticity and vulnerability is what people want.
So I'd love to know, because you have interviewed so many beautiful people and you've probably been in so many sticky situations like the one with Tones and I. Like what's some of the most important skill sets you think someone needs to have to be a good interviewer of someone else?
You have to listen with the intention to listen, not listen to respond, listen to understand. Like, I think that's a huge one. So letting that conversation flow where it's going to go. I think you can tell when someone's passionate about something too, and their eyes light up. They start they lean more forward. Their body language changes. Let them have that soapbox. Like I did an interview with a EDM artist called Vassi, and someone reached out to me and said it was a great interview. Well done. I loved that you just let her speak. That you gave her that space. And I didn't even notice that I do it. You were just having a conversation. But it was noticed that she was on a roll, and me as an interviewer just let her go, because that's what you're there for. You're there to listen, to understand, not to listen, to respond.
Why is this the format for future content?
Because it's that edutainment thing. This is where people learn. Like, people aren't going to podcasts purely to be entertained, predominantly. The majority of people go to podcasts to be entertained and to be educated. So if you're not giving them valuable insights, then they're probably not going to return.
And I like what you said there about edutainment. It's the merge of the two.
Yeah, and that's where the storytelling and anecdotal stuff comes in. Like, you can have a really great stat, like my 65% of consumers want to get their news through content creators and influencers because there's distrust in media. Like, that's awesome. But I can also tell you, a story around how artists' teams were wanting me to write their story because they trusted me as the person. I think it's important to have your stat, but also have an anecdote, because I don't know if you've ever watched, you've probably done lots of keynotes, but people come away from that remembering the stories rather than remembering the stats and figures.
It's an important note, because so many people try to make such an impressive slide deck with all these stats and graphs and charts and all the rest of it. And very early on when I was doing keynotes, I was like, I got to impress everyone. I got to give them the crazy stats and the biggest takeaways, and I want them to write notes. And it's always the story that people bring up afterwards. They're like, man, that story that you shared really clicked a gear in my head. I needed to hear that. And we forget sometimes how much storytelling is really the heartbeat of communication.
Because people connect with people. I believe institutions are depreciating and personalities and people are appreciating. People want human stories because that's what makes them feel connected.
Now, if we look at the landscape for content creation, deep conversation, what you're doing with the podcast space, if you're thinking about what you said before about how difficult it is to monetize a media business, it is really tough, guys.
Yep.
For those listening to this podcast, I sank money into this for years.
You're welcome, it exists.
So where does the line blur between creator and entrepreneur? How do you really honestly look at the mediascape and go, okay, we've got to monetize. We can't lose our heartbeat. We can't lose our soul. How do we bring these two things together?
I think every creator needs to be entrepreneurial. I think if you're a true creative, then you need to have an entrepreneurial spirit about you. You need to be the CEO of your own brand. And that's what we're asking all of our curious creators. We're not sitting there going, okay, we're thinking this brand is going to align with you, so we're just going to go and have the meeting with them. We're like, come into the meeting with us. Sell your podcast, help them understand why you're doing what you're doing, connect with them in an authentic way. There's no better salesperson than the person who cares about it most, is the person who's closest to it. So you absolutely have to have your entrepreneur hat on and your creator hat on at every time.
And if you were to create definitions for each of them in your own mind, because so many people have different definitions for creative and entrepreneurship, how do you describe them?
I think the creative person has the brilliant idea, and they have that brilliant blue sky thinking. They have an imagination that just can't be bottled. And the entrepreneur has the know-how to monetize and make that idea profitable. And you need to join them together. You need to be both.
And I think with what you're creating right now with the team that you're working with, and how you seem so like adaptive and passion led, and like also like a nous for like, we got to make the money, we got to make this thing work so we can do more of the cool creative stuff.
Yeah.
How do you balance the relationships between the creators and the platforms, right? Because it's like the algorithms are doing one thing, but we want to do another thing. Like, how do you make sure there's a synchronicity between where the media gets amplified and then where it gets created?
It's about having those right people in that right spot. You know, like we're looking at a few third-party options in terms of a, you know, social media scientist, basically. Like that's literally the role where they understand the algorithms. They understand that those algorithms change every few weeks, few months, and they're moving with them. They're trying to get us in on trends and stuff. And the creators are just moving with it. We're basically just transparent. Hey, we're trying this thing where we're going to do this. Hey, we're just going to go, like, I think we will go live with a couple of episodes. I think we'll really DIY it. I think we'll just do a one-camera setup and go live and see how that goes. But you just need to work with people who are willing to move with you and try new things with you. I think I remember when we launched the Brag Media, we tried so many things and made so many mistakes, but we learnt from them. And I'm ready to make a whole bunch more.
And if you look and peer to the future with all of this that you have happening, do you think that successful media companies of the future will be technology companies, talent agencies, or production studios?
All of them. Absolutely all of them. Can you imagine doing so much work, being a production company, media company, podcast network, and then your creator has a talent agreement with someone else and just gets taken off? Like you need to have all three. I don't have all three, by the way, just full transparency. But that's only because I don't have the infrastructure yet in order to make sure that those creators are being nurtured in the exact way that they should be nurtured if it was a talent agency as well. But I would love to get there.
And what's been your experience in the Australian landscape? Because obviously you're very connected with some fantastic people in business and people in media. What's the chitter-chat amongst the Australian zeitgeist around podcasting, do you think, right now?
I think the future is more personalities over institutions. Like I think, you know, that LinkedIn research of, you know, a personal brand versus a business brand says so much. And I think that people want authenticity. They don't want legacy logos. But I also think that we're going to see a rise in AI influencers because I think that businesses are understanding that you really do need a face of a company and you really do need cheerleaders, and they're going to make them up and it's going to be really dishonest at the start, and we're going to have these cheerleaders within comment sections being like, I'm the social media person and and I love this company and what you're doing is great. Oh my God, I love that episode or whatever. And then I think it's going to be dishonest to start with, and then I think it's going to get really honest. And I think consumers and fans are going to be okay with it. Like, look at Disney. We have huge fandoms all around characters that don't exist in the real world. Like, they're literally cartoons, and people are okay with following them and being huge fans of them. I think that the AI influencer is going to be something that's super acceptable. We do not have AI influencers at Curious Media. It's definitely something that I've thought of, but then I look at the team and I'm like, we're all doing that stuff. We're all like pumping it up on our own.
And when you tell a story, what are the components of a story that you really love to unfurl?
Well, I'm a lyrics girl. Like I love the biographical parts of it. Like, you know, when you had this song that was about, you know, your perfect Sunday, you know, was that about your wife, and what was the Sunday, what came from it, rah, rah, rah. This one you looked really angry, like what was really going on in your life then? Like I always try and get that, like that impetus, like where did it actually come from? And that's why I was mentioning before about how I get quite upset when I hear songs that do so well and they're just, I can tell there's nothing there. Like there's no backstory. There's literally just trying to hit a TikTok trend or something.
Yeah, it's like a room of like writers just trying to write a hit.
Yeah, it's a box ticking exercise. It's not actually bleeding onto a page.
So what's your bone to pick with that? Because let's argue, right, that in the mainstream scheme of things, the song does fantastic and it hits the billboard.
Who am I to judge then, right?
But what's your personal opinion on like what it lacks?
It is hard for me to have that. Music is so subjective. So you can't, like what I love, someone else might just absolutely hate. And that's the beauty of it. There's just no one universal great sound. But I think that it's the authenticity thing. Like I get quite sad when there's these artists that have done such incredible jobs and they've labored over something. Like there's this artist in Sydney called Phoebe Starr, and she writes the most amazing music, and she really thinks about everything from the visual aesthetic to like just being very meticulous about how a song is crafted. And she's really good at it too. And she's a multi-instrumentalist, and she sings from a place of such honesty and such vulnerability, and yet she doesn't have a career from her music. But there are songs out there that really hit when a TikTok trend was hitting, and it was just the right time and the right place, and they had the team around them that pushed that big red button that you push when you want to make a song go boom, and they had that corporate advantage.
Yeah. There's a lyric that I've always wanted to figure out what it meant, which was Meatloaf. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that.
You know, I met him and I asked him about that lyric.
Get out of here. You asked him?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know, like, if you have the
He won't
answer.
tell you. He won't tell you.
God, he didn't tell you?
No. So I had a little pie chart that I had printed off, and it said what I will do, and then it was that. And then I was like, what about me? Like, what would you do? And he was like, I would do anything and I would do that. And then he signed it. And then he was such a good interview, actually. And
What was it like meeting him? Because he's so energetic.
he was so animated. He was so fun. He was so willing to be nostalgic and go into all of the storytelling. He was great. And there was a really funny moment where it was me. I wasn't the editor of the Music Network at the time. It was the editor and then our photographer. And we get into the lift and we were just so excited that we'd just met Meatloaf. And we're like, hey, how crazy is that? And how crazy how he signed the silly pie chart and blah, 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 blah. And then we forgot to press G. So we was just in a lift without it even moving anywhere. And suddenly the doors open and it's Meatloaf carrying a fruit tray.
Okay.
He'd taken the fruit tray from where he was doing all the interviews and he was going to take it up to his suite. And he comes in and he's like, you want some fruit? And so I shared a fruit platter with Meatloaf.
In an elevator.
In an elevator. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Last question, Poppy. What does taking agency in life mean to you?
It means living to your values. You know, I have 3 major values that if I am not adhering to, I am out of that situation. So it's growth, which has gotten me through many sticky situations, actually. I've been in really tough ones where we touched on this before, where I've gone, wait, my highest value is growth. You know, you're just going to have to eat glass. And health and well-being. That's really important to me. It means, like, I don't drink at all. It means that I'm prioritizing sleep. It means that I exercise. It means that I can do really long days and not be a pain to be around. And it means that I can give my all to everything I do because I have the energy to do it. And then my 3rd value is joy. If something's not fun, if I'm not laughing, if I'm not smiling, and I'm also not hitting the other values of mine, then I'm leaving that room. I'm leaving that situation. I'm done.
Yeah. Poppy, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been an absolute blast. It's been really, really honestly, like sincerely a ton of joy to like crawl through your career and just see all this cool stuff that you've done. And just know that, you know, just knowing that you're such a caring, thoughtful human and you're trying to do good for the community, you're trying to do good for the artists that you've worked with. I'm inspired, I'm impressed, and I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I'm excited for the next chapter in your life.
Oh, thank you so much. And honestly, I'm impressed by everything that you've built. Like this is, I don't know, no one here can do the office tour, but I have done the office tour. It's amazing what you're building. I know you're going to take over this whole floor very soon. It's very cool. I think growth is so important in media, and you're doing that in so many ways. And yeah, we need to talk more.
Yeah, 100%.
I want some help.
We're going to chat.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
you so much.